general categories of chemicals that are typically added to fracking fluids. You see acids, biocides, corrosion inhibitors, and the other three there. These are added to make the frack work better. And if you don't add those things, you could end up either diminishing the amount of gas you get out of the well or creating an environmental hazard from hydrogen sulfide, for example. So even though you're putting chemicals in the ground, they're put in for a specific purpose, and it's not only to help the gas company, it's to help the environment in many cases. But the amounts are very small compared to the amounts of the water and the sand, which are the main ingredients of fracking fluids. Just as a general rule of thumb, about 90% of the total volume in a fracking fluid is water, roughly 10% is sand. The sand is used when you make the cracks. If you release the pressure, they close up again. But when you push sand into those cracks, release the pressure, it props the cracks open. So they're referred to as proppants. All right, so you got well over 99% is water and sand. A few tenths of a percent makes up all those other chemicals combined. Last April, two states organizations, the Groundwater Protection Council and the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission, opened a new chemical disclosure registry site. The address is shown there. It's frackfocus.org. Data entry is voluntary, but most of the major gas companies have agreed to do it. And I'll show you the type of information that gets put on there. It's open to the public so that you can go and search for a well by state, by producer, and so on. The one thing that's missing there is they're only entering data for which a material safety data sheet has been produced. And under that particular part of the law, material safety data sheets are required for hazardous chemicals. If you're using a substance that's not considered hazardous, there may not be the MSDS sheet. Some of the gas producers are not putting a listing on for that particular chemical. One of the few places that has tracked water closely for hydraulic fracturing is in the Susquehanna River Basin. The organization called the Susquehanna River Basin Commission has kept very good records about how much water is used and what gets done with it. They tracked 553 wells from the middle of 2008 until the early part of this year. They found that about 1.6 billion gallons have been used for making up frac fluids so far. 2/3 of that's coming from surface water, 1/3 coming from public supplies. The typical average volume for a given well is about 4.2 million. And what was surprising to me when I first learned this, the amount of water that comes back out from underground, what we call the flowback, is only 8% of the volume that was originally put in. Now, over time, you'll get more water adding on as what I call produced water, but the number that I use for the Marcellus is 10 to 15% of the water originally put in with the frac fluids comes out. The rest stays in the ground. When I looked at these three states, I totaled it all up. I came up with a number in million gallons per day now of about roughly 25,000 million gallons per day. When I make that ratio, how much water is needed for the shale gas, converting the million gallons per year back to million gallons per day, compared to all the other water uses currently going on in the region, you can see that I get about 0.2% is all that would be needed to make up the water for every frac job in a theoretical high production year. What I conclude from that is there should be plenty of water to go around. Not at every location and not at every week during the year. But if operators take advantage of high water conditions like we're seeing this week, put them in the impoundments that Tom described, there should be plenty of water to meet the region's needs.